A new aircraft order is on the cards. Airbus A350 news for Australia, and a carrier finally selling its fleet of Boeing 777s. Want to begin with that massive new aircraft order. Air India, they're keen to add even more aircraft to their backlog, with a new prospective deal being worked on with Airbus and Boeing. The flag carrier, according to Reuters, is considering a deal that would involve acquiring 200 new aircraft, with a specific focus on single-aisle jets to help develop its short to medium-haul division. At this stage, the specific aircraft type of interest has not been disclosed. However, the A320neo and 737 MAX family already play a role in Air India's plans and would be the leading choice for consideration. While interest in the development of the single-aisle division persists, discussions about the airline's new aircraft purchase also follow, with public interest in extending its wide-body commitments. It was only in 2023 that Air India announced one of the largest commercial aircraft orders ever seen, comprising of many wide-body and single-aisle types, as part of a massive investment worth tens of billions of dollars by its ownership. Now, however, as the industry continues to develop and we see demand increase, there is a further requirement for new planes to be added to the backlog, to ensure that deliveries can continue into the 2030s when demand is expected to keep growing. Air India also faces pressures across the single-aisle market to secure orders now, ensuring delivery slots are reserved for up to 7 to 10 years in advance. With so much demand for these types of planes and the backlogs only growing amid continued production and therefore output struggles, ensuring that plane deliveries are secured now is pivotal. Unfortunately, suppose airlines like Air India wait until the turn of the decade to purchase planes from the source, namely Airbus and Boeing, rather than through a lessor, well, in that case, they risk not having any available slots and not obtaining the desired aircraft that they require for another decade. As a result, these investments, although you may consider them to be substantial and certainly excessive, they're viewed as crucial to help airlines such as Air India ensure that by the midway point of the 2030s, they are still taking delivery of new planes. They have sufficient capacity to meet what they hope the expected growth will look like. There are obvious risks, don't get me wrong, associated with purchases of this nature, as one can never be truly fully aware of what the next 10 years will hold. I absolutely don't want to say that this could come, but we very well may have another global pandemic. There may be a global war, conflict. There may be something to do with our climate. Look, none of us really thought the COVID-19 pandemic would come, and look what that meant. However, for the most part, the pros outweigh the cons, and therefore would be worth the investment. And if you're taking the time to do your due diligence as a carrier, well, then they are going to make that investment. Certainly, there are instances where these maybe don't go exactly according to plan. I will always give you the example of Etihad Airways, but it's not isolated to just them. They went on a massive spending spree in the early to mid 2010s, with a big focus on renewing and growing the fleet. However, when you paired that with some really poor investment decisions in established airlines that maybe weren't in the best financial position, became a struggle, and Etihad Airways found themselves with too many aircraft. For Air India, they simply don't want this. They don't want the massive investments being placed now to come back to bite them and leave them in a position where they simply say cannot service the planes that are being taken on. Remembering that at the moment, Air India is certainly amidst a new era, with major investment after major investment coming through in the hopes of turning around this really damaged flag carrier. On to the next story, and Etihad Airways has confirmed that its state-of-the-art Airbus A350 will debut in Australia for the first time later this year. Set to commence on the 1st of October, the A350 will complement an existing service operated by the 7879, but we will say goodbye to the 777. However, from the 31st of January, this is where the big change really occurs. The airline will go all in with its 10 weekly Sydney services, utilising the A3501000, a full transition that will see the state-of-the-art cabin technology featured, hoping to elevate those customer satisfaction levels. The A350 introduces more premium travel options to Australia as well, bringing the airline's newest wide-body long-haul product to the country and the popular city, of course, as well, of Sydney. Etihad Airways recognises the importance of Sydney and the Australian market, and as a result, you're going to see passenger seat capacity in the premium slots increase by over 20%. In terms of your overall availability, well, the A350-1000 naturally comes with a higher capacity, and Etihad Airways says overall seat availability will rise by 10%. Initially, the A3501000 will be deployed on EY 454, 455, but as mentioned, it will eventually be adopted also on the other 787 flight, and it will be a full A3501000 service to the city. As for the A3501000, it certainly offers Etihad Airways passengers really a state-of-the-art experience. The company at least says it has prioritized comfort levels with a strong focus on the onboard experience. The aircraft features 44 business studios as part of the business class, with each equipped with a sliding door, looking to increase privacy wherever possible. Meanwhile, with each seat being forward-facing and having direct aisle access, the suites have really been perfectly designed with comfort, privacy, and class. They are converted into a fully flat bed measuring 79 inches. The airline says it has made an effort to include ample storage, with an emphasis on keeping the belongings with you. The A350 can also accommodate those further back with 327 economy smart seats. The A350-1000 is the highest capacity plane in the broader family, and they've leveraged this capacity across their network to ensure that they can really have a premium configuration in the markets that need it all the most. Over to the next story, the last one in today's proceedings, and that sits with Air Zimbabwe, who have made the tough but necessary decision to sell off their 777 fleet. In terms of the fleet data, it shows that Air Zimbabwe has two historic 777-200s to its name, delivered in 2020 and prior, but did not operate as intended. You're looking at ZNBE, delivered in October 2020, previously flying with Malaysia Airlines after first arriving at the Kuala Lumpur-based carrier in 2004. Meanwhile, Z-RGM was actually first delivered to what was previously known as Zimbabwe Airways in 2018, but then we know the company went through a rebrand, but again, since delivery, it's remained stored. In a similar fashion, the second 777-200 was also with Malaysia Airlines from 2004. These 777s initially represented a new era for Air Zimbabwe, but the planned usage of these planes never eventuated, despite attempts to make the airline a true force to be reckoned with, not just for the nation, but also for neighbouring locations too. Therefore, both aircraft have remained grounded, and the decision to sell the planes highlights the financial pressures that are being placed on this national carrier. Air Zimbabwe isn't afraid to acknowledge that there has been some pretty hefty mismanagement, some would argue going as far as corruption as well, that has occurred in recent times, and that can be now directly attributed to the necessary sale of these planes. Typically, when airlines sell aircraft, they believe they are of some value, maybe they can be used elsewhere, but generally it is in a bid to raise funds, and it's increasingly common for a carrier like an Air Zimbabwe who find themselves in a financially precarious position. For these 777 jets, they will be sold as is, very common practice when any plane is really put up for sale. While Air Zimbabwe is one of the many airlines struggling across our industry, its position hasn't been aided by the persistent increase in costs alongside many other decisions. Increasing revenue has been a challenge, and what has been all the more frustrating is, if we date back now, scarily 7 or so years ago when the airline took delivery of these 777s, these planes were actually seen as a key way to elevate Air Zimbabwe, allow it to really build a global network and start afresh. None of that has happened, and now they find themselves in a very unfavourable position, trying to rebuild for what would be not the first time. Very keen to hear your take on any of the stories. Let me know down below your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you tomorrow. And we'll fly.